There was a time when there were many different vegan news and commentary YouTube channels who might respond to a story, such as the one I uploaded, I think less than 12 hours ago. But today there are fewer and fewer. One of the very few remaining is a guy named Vegan Footsoldier. And he means well, but in his response, he is both incorrect in terms of the data he presents, and he's also very misleading in terms of the conclusions he draws and the generalizations that he speaks in terms of. So one of his prominent examples in his response to my video, or I might say his rebuttal, is that he suggests that, well, it's true that the total number of viewers represented by channels like Freely and Durian Rider and Vegan Gains, it's true that the examples I use show a dramatic decline in the order of more than 10 million viewers leaving this genre or leaving this ecosystem. But he suggests to you optimistically, there are other YouTube channels that are really successful and that are really growing during the same period of time. And his main example is Fully Raw Christina. So this is false in terms of the specific data being invoked, and it's also misleading in terms of the conclusions or generalizations he comes to. The YouTube channel for Fully Raw Christina does not contradict my hypothesis. Her channel affirms it. It's a further example of the same phenomenon. In October of 2016, you can see she had 2.6 million views per month, and that has declined dramatically to about 0.6 million at present. Now, my thesis is not that that just reflects her personal artistic failure or her personal creative failure. I think it reflects an overall decline in the number of viewers in this genre, in this category, an overall decline of interest, which is consistent with what the Google Trend data shows, the numerous other direct and indirect signs we all have, that we've had at least 1 year of serious decline. Now, a comparison here would be between someone who claims, well, every year there are a few rock stars and there are a few dance hall artists and a few rap artists in many different genres of music. Sometimes one musician is famous and popular, sometimes another is, and you can't generalize about the decline of a genre of music just on the basis of individual success. Well, that is true, but you can look at trend data that really shows you that yes, by 2017, as this article says, the statistics are really clear that the whole genre, the whole category of guitar-based music, the whole category of rock and roll music really has declined, and other genres like hip-hop music have become more popular. So we're not just talking about the fact that today it's less popular for people to look at Fully Raw Christina and more popular for people to look at Maddie Limburner here or comparing Freely to someone else. When you look at the total numbers, even if you look at the numbers of those specific channels, a decline of 12 million people with Freely would not be compensated for by an increase of 2 million with Fully Raw Christina. But in fact, as I've just shown, Fully Raw Christina is also not increasing. She is decreasing, most likely because she is exactly struggling to succeed in the same genre, in the same ecosystem, in a situation where the total level of interest in vegan content has declined. Now, this is not the only sense in which the data he presents is misleading and false. Footsoldier's comparison to the stock market is false for many reasons. Number one, we're not talking about the cumulative increase in the value of an investment or an asset or a stock. Number two, the actual chart he shows is wildly irrelevant. He talks for quite a long time about Bitcoin values. It's totally irrelevant to the situation we're in. And then the actual chart he does show from Google Trends data about the word veganism, he's generated this incorrectly. You cannot have Google Trends set to world. You must set it to an English-speaking country, such as the United States of America, Canada, or as I'm going to show you in a moment, England. Now, here again, this is basically the same chart you saw on my channel before. This is the data for the United States of America over 5 years. Even if everything Footsoldier said were true and accurate, which it is not. Much of what he says is false. But even if it were true and accurate, a 2-year period of decline would not be insignificant. We'd still be able to look at this period of 5 years and say, well, within this 5-year period, you had 3 years of increase and then 2 years of decline. That can be something significant, and I've set out all the reasons why that is. Declining interest in veganism. So here's the United States over 5 years, and here's the United States over 10 years. This is not a cumulative value. It's not the case that I'm earning dividends year after year from buying something in the stock market. Over 5 years in the United States, again, you see that recent decline. And on the 10-year chart, it looks even more recent and more sharp. Now, you cannot generate data for the whole world from this interface because the whole world contains India and China and parts of Europe where they don't speak English. If you want to use Google Trends data or the different word tracking data that Google generates, it is very language specific. It's very sensitive to the language. So you cannot do a world-based search for veganism and treat that as meaningful or coherent data, which is what he did. I think that's just an error on his part. He just didn't think about it, that, oh, if I'm including India and China and a lot of other places, we're basically going to be masking the trend and showing a kind of meaningless chart. But guess where else they speak English? Here is jolly old England, and look at that 10-year trend. So between 2009 and 2017, a big increase in interest, but now a very sharp trend just recently in 2019. This is much more dramatic looking at the chart for England than looking at the chart for the United States. Now, look guys, I am not opposed to optimism. I think it's great to look at the data and say, we can overcome this, we can do better. But I already set out my argument very clearly in the video I already made. If your idea of the future of veganism is that we're going to have a best-selling book year after year after year, if your idea of the future of veganism is that we're going to have a hit documentary movie year after year after year, and that that's going to be sustainable or that that's going to continue to grow, I think that is unrealistic and silly. It's not a meaningful basis for optimism about the future of the movement. Now, the other thing I was trying to emphasize is precisely the point that Footsoldier chooses to miss in the conclusion of his video, that investing in the development of packaged products is very different from people investing their time and their money in real-world activism on a charitable basis, on a level of political organizations, lobbying for government change. You cannot look at this as a stock market statistic. You have to look at this. I mean, ultimately, we're looking at the market for people getting involved in self-sacrificing and altruistic action. We're not looking at the return on investment for producing new packaged products.
Dun, 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 dun.